He said he was flying to Paris for work. I believed him, until I saw her name on his flight reservation. So I did what any betrayed wife with nothing left to lose would do. I bought the seat right next to them. Have you ever stared at someone you love and realized they've become a complete stranger? Hi, I'm Angel, and if you're listening, you might think I'm crazy. Maybe I am. But when you give your entire heart to someone, 15 years, a child, a home, you don't walk away quietly when they destroy it all. You fight. Even if the battlefield is 30,000 feet above the Atlantic. Before I go on, tell me, where are you watching this from? And would you have done what I did? Let me know in the comments. I'm dying to hear your take. It started with a hotel receipt. That's all it took to rip my world in half. Folded in the pocket of my husband's jeans like a careless secret. One night at the Hotel Lutetia in Paris. 2 names on the reservation. His and hers. A woman I'd never heard of, yet somehow felt I'd known all along. You know that gut feeling? The one you silence for the sake of your sanity? I'd buried mine under carpool pickups, Sunday dinners, and anniversary kisses that now feel like poison. I didn't confront him. Not yet. I couldn't. Because first I needed to know everything. The lies had to bleed out slowly. I needed proof. Something undeniable. Something that would haunt him the way he was haunting me. I wasn't going to just walk in and scream. No, I was going to sit next to them, smile politely, and watch the panic spread across his face like wildfire. And that's how I ended up buying a ticket to Paris. Not for romance. Not for adventure. For revenge. It was his work trip, or so he claimed. 3 days in Paris for strategic planning with his company's European partners. That was the script he handed me like I was stupid. I smiled, nodded, and told him I'd miss him. Meanwhile, I was checking credit card records, flight manifests, and syncing his calendar to my own. I moved like a ghost in my own home. Silent, invisible, and watching everything. The night before his flight, he packed light. I offered to fold his shirts. He declined. He kissed me goodnight like nothing was wrong. But his phone buzzed at 2:16 a.m., and I saw her name. Can't wait to be in Paris with you, baby. I almost screamed. But I didn't. I saved it. I locked it away in the pit of my stomach. Let it churn until it became fuel. The next morning, I dropped him off at the airport like a devoted wife. I watched him walk through the terminal with a suitcase full of lies. I waved. He waved back. And then I waited, until he disappeared behind the security checkpoint. That's when I pulled out my own ticket. Flight 1427 to Charles de Gaulle. Seat 14C. And guess who was in 14A and 14B? I'd spent an extra $1,800 to choose that seat. More than I'd ever spent on myself in one sitting. But it was worth every cent. The look on his face was going to be priceless. But first I had to get there. And wait. I sat at the gate, hood up, sunglasses on, heart racing like a drum in a funeral march. Every time the loudspeaker chimed, I thought I'd throw up. But when they called for boarding, I stood up with the others, shaking, sweating, and full of quiet rage. The boarding line felt like a lifetime. I watched every face, and then I saw them. He was laughing, holding her carry-on like a gentleman. She was clinging to his arm, dressed in white linen and expensive perfume. He kissed his cheek. He looked at her like he used to look at me. I couldn't breathe. I turned away. Let them go ahead. Watched them scan their tickets and disappear down the jet bridge. Then I followed. I stepped onto the plane like it was a stage. Each row I passed brought me closer to the fire. When I reached row 14, my hands were trembling so badly I almost dropped my bag. There they were. In love. In bliss. In for the shock of their lives. I took my seat beside them. He didn't see me at first. He was too busy whispering into her ear. But when he finally turned, his smile dropped. His body stiffened. And I just looked at him. No words. Just the full force of everything he'd done reflected in my eyes. But that's not even the worst part. Because what he didn't know yet, what she didn't know, was that I wasn't just here for revenge. I had a secret of my own. One that was going to change everything. If you were me sitting in that seat, what would you have done next? Let me know in the comments. I'm reading everyone. Because the turbulence has only just begun. People say revenge is sweet. But as I sat in seat 14C, 2 inches away from the man who shattered our life and the woman he was willing to destroy it for, I realized something. Revenge isn't sweet. It's suffocating. Every breath I took on that plane felt borrowed. Like the air around me wasn't mine anymore. It was poisoned by secrets, silence, and the smell of her vanilla perfume. Let me back up, because I need you to really feel what I felt in that moment. He turned to me like he'd seen a ghost. And in a way he had. The version of me he betrayed, the trusting wife, the mother of his child, the woman who believed in forever. That version had died weeks ago. Now all that was left was this quiet, furious stranger sitting beside him at 30,000 feet. He didn't say a word. Neither did I. And that's what made it worse. She glanced at me, confused, polite, clueless. She didn't recognize me. Of course not. Why would she? I was the one he kept hidden. The one who stayed home, folded his laundry, raised our son, and made excuses for his absences. I wanted to scream at her. Tell her everything. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I leaned back in my seat, fastened my belt, and smiled. Not at them, but at the irony of it all. Because here we were, side by side, 3 players in a tragedy with no curtain call. Quick pause. Have you ever confronted a cheater in public? Or would you rather gather evidence and strike when they least expect it? Let me know in the comments. I need to know I'm not the only one who's done something extreme. The flight attendants moved through the aisles, cheerful and oblivious. The plane hummed, passengers settled in, and I kept pretending. Pretending I didn't know him. Pretending I wasn't planning something. Pretending I wasn't about to drop a bomb of my own. See the secret I mentioned? The one they didn't know? It wasn't just that I knew about them. It was that I'd been preparing for this moment for weeks. While he was planning his romantic getaway, I was doing my own digging. Background checks. Financial records. And then, an email I wasn't supposed to find. One that changed everything. She wasn't just some fling. She was his boss's wife. Let that sink in. He wasn't just cheating. He was risking his entire career, our livelihood, for someone who had the power to burn everything down. And if I exposed them, it wouldn't just ruin our marriage. It would ruin them. So I waited. The first 2 hours of the flight were pure torture. They talked. They laughed. She rested her head on his shoulder. And I sat silent, still seething. I replayed every moment of our marriage in my mind like a slideshow from hell. The night he said he had to work late, but never came home until morning. The coldness in his kisses. The way he avoided our son's bedtime routine. The sudden guilt gifts. The earrings, the spa voucher, the wine I never asked for. It all made sense now. He wasn't falling out of love. He was falling into someone else's arms. And I had a front row seat. But then, somewhere over the Atlantic, something unexpected happened. She excused herself to the restroom. And he turned to me. His mouth open like he wanted to explain, justify, apologize. But I held up one hand. A silent, surgical motion. Like a surgeon before an incision. He froze. And then I leaned in, so close he could smell the lavender on my skin, and whispered 6 words that drained the color from his face. I know who she really is. His lips parted. But I didn't let him speak. I slid a flash drive into his palm. One I'd prepared in advance. It contained screenshots, emails, and one very specific video clip. One I found on a deleted folder in his cloud backups. One that could end more than just our marriage. He looked down at it like it was a grenade. I leaned back in my seat, closed my eyes, and said nothing else. When she returned, smiling and refreshed, she had no idea the world had just shifted around her. The plane dipped slightly as it entered a pocket of turbulence. How fitting. Because things were about to get really bumpy. Would you have handed over the flash drive? Or waited until landing to make your move? I need to know what you'd do in my shoes. Tell me in the comments. Your opinions keep me sane. But the truth? That flash drive was just the beginning. Because revenge wasn't the end goal. It was just step 1. And step 2? That involved someone they both forgot about. Someone whose voice was about to echo across the skies and into their perfectly planned destruction. Our son. You won't believe what I did next. There's a special kind of silence on a long-haul flight. It's not peace. It's not calm. It's the kind of silence that makes your thoughts deafening. The kind where your heartbeat becomes a war drum and every memory is a blade to your chest. After I handed him that flash drive, I didn't say another word. I let the weight of it all sit there, between us, like a ticking time bomb. He slid it into his laptop the second she dozed off on his shoulder. I didn't look at the screen. I didn't have to. I knew what was on it. The photos. The emails. The video of them in his office, thinking they were untouchable. I even included a screen grab of her wedding photo. Her arms wrapped around the very man signing my husband's paychecks. Checkmate. But none of it gave me satisfaction. Because while I was watching him squirm, my phone buzzed. I shouldn't have checked it mid-flight. But something in my chest told me to look. It was from our son. 12 years old. Sweet, funny, with a heart far too big for a world like this. He sent a voice note. My hands shook as I pressed play under my blanket, keeping the volume low. Hey Mom. I miss you already. I know you said you were going to visit Aunt Tara, but I hope you're okay. Dad seemed kinda weird when he left. I just wanted to say, I love you. And I'm proud of you. I hope you're doing something cool. Or brave. Or both. I nearly broke. Right there, 30,000 feet above the ocean, I bit my lip so hard it bled. He didn't know where I really was. He didn't know his father was in the seat next to me, whispering sweet nothings to a woman who didn't even know she was a ticking scandal. But somehow, my son knew I was doing something brave. Have you ever had a moment like that? One that reminded you why you had to stay strong, even when your world was falling apart? Tell me in the comments, because hearing your stories helps me remember I'm not alone. I turned toward the window to hide the tears. Because in that moment I realized something. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice. For me. For my son. For the woman I used to be before I let love make me blind. I started to plan. I knew I had 7 more hours in the air. 7 hours to take back my power. The next move had to be surgical. No screaming. No theatrics. Just quiet devastation. So I did something most people wouldn't dare do. I sent her a message. Not directly. Not yet. I used the in-flight Wi-Fi to find her public Instagram. It was filled with yoga poses, rooftop brunches, and motivational quotes she clearly didn't live by. I created a new account. No name. No photo. And I sent her one image. Just one. It was a picture of her, taken from the seat behind her. On that very flight. Her head resting on my husband's shoulder. No words. No explanation. Just proof that someone was watching. And then I watched her. 5 minutes later she shifted. Sat up straighter. Checked her phone. Froze. She turned around, slowly like a woman being hunted. Her eyes scanned the cabin. Confused. Anxious. She whispered something to him. He stiffened. And then for the first time since boarding she saw me. Not just as a stranger. But as me. The realization spread across her face like ink in water. I didn't smirk. I didn't gloat. I just stared. Pulled. Clear. Unflinching. She looked between us. Him. Me. Back to him. And that's when it happened. She stood up. Left her seat. Walked straight to the flight attendant and requested to move to another row. He tried to stop her. Reached for her wrist. But she shook him off like a storm shaking a tree. He was unraveling. And I hadn't even said a word yet. But I wasn't done. Because back home our son was still waiting. Still believing in both his parents. And he didn't deserve any of this. So I crafted one final move. The moment we landed in Paris, I was going to send one email to her husband. Not to destroy her. But to warn him. Because if someone had warned me, maybe I wouldn't be here. Maybe I would have seen the signs before it was too late. What would you have done next? Would you send the email? Or walk away and let them destroy each other? Tell me in the comments, because your advice might be the only thing keeping me grounded right now. But before we could land, something happened I never expected. He turned to me one last time, and whispered something that made my blood run cold. It wasn't, "I'm sorry." It wasn't, "Please forgive me." It was 3 words I never imagined hearing from the man I once loved. "I never chose you." That's when I knew, this wasn't just betrayal. It was war. I thought the worst part was over when I boarded that plane. I thought the betrayal, the humiliation, the rage, they'd already peaked. That maybe I could coast through the landing with my head held high, having delivered the quietest, coldest revenge a wife ever served. But then he whispered those words. I never chose you. 7 syllables that hit harder than any slap could. Not because they were cruel, but because, in that moment, I realized he believed it. To him, I was the convenient choice. The safe one. The predictable wife. The background character in the life he was really chasing. But I wasn't background anymore. I was the author now. And the final chapter? That was waiting for me in Paris. Before I continue, have you ever had to see someone face to face after they destroyed you? Drop a comment. I want to know how you handled it, because what happened next? I still don't fully believe it myself. The plane touched down just after 8 a.m. Charles de Gaulle was bathed in that soft gray light only Paris can pull off, like the city itself knew something sinister had just landed. I didn't wait for him. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and disappeared into the crowd. I could feel his eyes trying to follow me, but I never looked back. Because I wasn't here for him anymore. I was here for the man at gate 37. It started a week before the flight. Back when I was still gathering evidence, still quietly unraveling the life he built on lies, I reached out to someone I never thought I'd contact. Her husband. His name was Daniel. A quiet, powerful man with an impeccable resume and a reputation for being cold but fair. I didn't expect a reply. But he didn't just reply. He called me. I'll never forget the first thing he said. I've been waiting for this message. Turns out he wasn't blind. He'd seen the late nights, the fake conferences, the way she guarded her phone like it held national secrets. But he didn't want a scandal. He wanted proof. So we made a deal. I'd bring him everything. Dates, photos, files. In exchange, he'd tell me what he knew. About her. About my husband. And about something far more disturbing than I'd ever imagined. Now, standing in the middle of a Paris airport, I was about to meet him face to face. He was waiting exactly where he said he'd be, tall, composed, with a leather satchel slung across one shoulder. We didn't shake hands. We just nodded. 2 people joined by betrayal, bound by strategy. He led me to a quiet airport cafe tucked behind the customs area. We ordered espresso, and without small talk he handed me an envelope. Inside were printed emails, photos, 1 bank transfer, and 1 paternity test. My breath stopped. Because the name on the test wasn't just hers. It was his. My husband's. And the child. Born 6 years ago. A boy. That's when the room tilted. That's when the floor beneath my entire life gave way. He hadn't just betrayed me with her. He'd created an entirely different family. Tell me in the comments, what would you do if you found out your husband had a secret child? Because I swear, in that moment I forgot how to breathe. Daniel watched me silently. He didn't offer pity. Just the truth. Their affair had started long before I ever suspected. It wasn't spontaneous. It was calculated. She was the seductress. He was the fool who thought he'd never be caught. But they were caught now. And what Daniel said next, that's what truly sealed their fate. He leaned in and whispered, I've already filed for divorce. But I'm going to do it quietly. Let them think they've won. Let them be together. And then when they're relaxed, I'll take everything. I stared at him, half horrified, half in awe. Because this wasn't revenge. It was surgical dismantling. And I realized something. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to explode. I just needed to walk away, with everything. My head held high. My proof in hand. And my future no longer tethered to a man who chose a lie over the family he already had. We stood to leave, and Daniel placed 1 more envelope in my hand. This, he said, is for your son. In case he ever asks why his father left. Inside. A letter. Typed. Signed. In my husband's handwriting. The one he'd sent her, promising a life with her and their real family. I would save that letter. Not to poison my son's mind. But to protect it. To show him one day that we were never the problem. We were just the collateral damage in someone else's fantasy. What would you do if you held the final proof of your husband's secret life? Would you destroy it, or use it? Tell me in the comments. because what I did next will probably haunt me forever. As I stepped into a Paris morning, free for the first time in years, I didn't feel rage anymore. I felt clarity. But I also knew the worst confrontation was still waiting. Because guess who was staying in my hotel? That's right. Her. The hallway was long. Every step I took felt like a heartbeat, measured, steady, but trembling underneath. Room 412. I knew it before I even saw the number. The concierge gave it to me without question. I told him I was surprising a friend. Maybe I was surprising her with the truth. But the truth is, I wasn't there for closure. I was there for something else. Control. Not revenge. Not drama. Just the chance to take back my voice from the woman who thought she could rewrite my story. Would you have gone to her room? Or walked away with your head high? Tell me in the comments. Because I still don't know if I crossed a line, or finally drew one. I raised my hand to knock and then stopped. Because for a split second I thought of my son. What kind of mother confronts her husband's mistress in a hotel hallway thousands of miles from home? But then I remembered her face on that plane. Smiling. Resting her head on him. Playing house in public while I sat just inches away. She made herself part of this. So I knocked. Once. Twice. Then the door creaked open. She didn't speak right away. Her eyes widened in recognition, then narrowed in disbelief. She was barefoot. Robe tied lazily. Hair up. No makeup. No mask. Just her raw and cornered. I stepped inside before she could stop me. The room was pristine. 2 champagne glasses on the table. A single red rose in a vase. It looked like a scene from a romance novel. But all I saw was a crime scene. And the criminal, standing across from me. She opened her mouth to speak, but I raised one hand. No excuses, I said. Calm. Steady. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope Daniel had given me. The paternity test. The emails. The letter my husband wrote calling her and their son his real family. Her face drained of color. He staggered back like the truth had weight. Maybe it did. Maybe guilt is heavier than shame. Have you ever watched someone realize they've been caught in real time? The way their whole face folds in on itself. It's not satisfying, it's sad. But it's also necessary. She started to speak. A stammer. A whisper of an apology. But I shook my head. I'm not here for that, I told her. I'm not here to fix what you broke. She lowered herself into a chair, silent now, clutching the papers like they were burning her fingers. I'm here, I said, to give you one chance. One. I told her that Daniel knew everything. That I knew everything. And that if she so much as tried to twist this into something noble, something romantic, there would be no mercy. I wasn't bluffing. I had legal power now. I had recordings, receipts, a lawyer who specialized in scorched earth divorces. But I also had something she didn't expect. Pity. Because as I looked at her, I realized she was just as trapped as I had been. Trapped in a lie she told herself. That love built on betrayal could still be beautiful. I gave her a choice. Leave my husband. Or I'd make sure everything came crashing down. Her marriage. Her social status. Her son's peace of mind. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Because secrets don't stay secrets forever. Especially not in Paris. And definitely not when I'm the one holding the matches. She didn't answer. She just nodded. Once. Small. Picky. That was enough. I stood, walked to the door and paused. By the way, I said, tell him I forgive him. I saw her eyes widen. You what? I turned, smiled cold and clean. Because forgiveness isn't for him. It's for me. Would you forgive someone who shattered your family? Or would you hold on to that pain forever? I really want to hear your thoughts in the comments because this next part, it's where I finally let go. As I stepped into the hallway, I felt lighter. Not healed. Not whole. But free. And sometimes that's all we get. Freedom. Clarity. And the chance to start again without the weight of someone else's lies. But just when I thought I was finished, a text came through. From him. And what he said changed everything. The text lit up my screen like a final ember from a fire I thought I'd already put out. Can we talk? Please. Just us. I stared at it for a long time. No name. Just the message. But I didn't need a name. I'd known his words for years. I'd built a life around them. And now they meant nothing. Still, curiosity is a strange thing. Even when the heart is broken beyond repair, part of you still wants to see what they'll say next. So I agreed. I told him to meet me near the Seine. There's a small stone bridge where tourists rarely go, quiet, shaded, tucked between history and heartbreak. And that's where I stood, watching the water drift by, wondering how a love so deep could turn so hollow. He arrived 10 minutes late. Typical. Still dressed like the man I once married. Button-down shirt, nice shoes, that same cologne he wore the night he proposed. It made me nauseous. He looked nervous. Good. He said my name softly like it still belonged to him. I didn't respond. I let the silence do the talking. And when he finally spoke, it was with that practiced sincerity that used to make me melt. That boyish, I messed up but you still love me voice. Only now it sounded like a ghost. He told me he made a mistake. That he never stopped loving me. That the affair started during a rough patch but it never meant to go this far. That he didn't want to lose everything. Our life, our son, our history. And then he asked it. The question. Can we start over? Have you ever had someone look at you like they were drowning, after they were the one who set the boat on fire? Drop a comment if you've been there, because nothing prepares you for the moment the one who broke you tries to come back like nothing happened. I listened to him ramble. List the memories. The good times. The promises we made when we were young and stupid and still believed love was enough. But here's the thing. Love isn't enough when it's built on lies. It's not enough when someone else is calling your husband daddy, while your son waits for his real father to come home. So I asked him one question. Would you have ever told me? He froze. I repeated it. If I hadn't followed you, if I hadn't gotten on that flight, if I hadn't caught you, would you have ever told me the truth? He didn't answer. And that was my answer. Silence speaks volumes, doesn't it? If someone truly regrets what they did, shouldn't the truth come out before the damage is exposed? Let me know in the comments what you think. Because in that moment, my heart knew what my head had been screaming for weeks. I looked him in the eye. And I told him I wasn't angry anymore. Not because I forgave him, but because I released him. I told him to go. Be with her. Be a father to his secret son. Build the life he wanted while pretending he never had one with me. Because I wasn't coming back. I already did everything I could to save our marriage. But I wouldn't set myself on fire to keep it warm anymore. He begged. Actually begged. Tears welled in his eyes. He tried to touch my hand. But I stepped back. I told him about the letter. The one he wrote to her. Calling them his real family. And I told him I kept it. Not as revenge. But as a reminder. Of the moment I finally chose myself. Would you have done the same? Or is there still a version of this story where you go back? Be honest. Because what I say next in part 7, it's not just for me. It's for every woman who's ever been betrayed and still wondered if walking away makes her weak. He asked if I'd tell our son. And I said yes. Not today. Not tomorrow. But one day when he's old enough to ask the questions and deserve the answers. Because secrets breed more pain than truth ever could. And our son deserves better than a lie dressed in a father's suit. I turned to leave. And as I walked away, I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I just breathed. One deep breath. The first breath of my new life. But just when I thought it was over, I received another message. From a woman I'd never met. And what she told me revealed a truth I never saw coming. I was packing my suitcase when the message came in. A simple notification. An unfamiliar name. I almost didn't open it. I was exhausted. Emotionally, physically, spiritually. Paris had drained me, but in the best way. I had arrived broken, betrayed, drowning in the quiet ache of everything I'd lost. But I was leaving stronger. Lighter. Free. Or so I thought. Guess the message? It started with 4 words. You don't know everything. It was from a woman named Eliza. She said she found me through a mutual contact. Someone who had seen the fallout online. The quiet whispers. The subtle unfollowing. The photos disappearing. People always notice when a marriage ends. Especially when it ends loudly in silence. Eliza told me she used to work with my husband. Years ago. In Chicago. She had no reason to message me, except this. She had been his mistress too. Have you ever thought the worst was behind you, only to learn there was more hiding in the shadows? Tell me in the comments. Because this moment, it undid me in a way the others didn't. She said it started 5 years ago. Around the same time he began seeing her, the one from the flight. He'd fly to Chicago for conferences, stay late for networking events. And in between, he was building a harem of secrets. Eliza wasn't naive. She figured out he was married after just a few weeks. She confronted him. He cried, said it was complicated, that the marriage was dying, that I was cold, controlling, distant, funny, because that's exactly what he told me about her. Same lines, different victims. I read every word of Eliza's message, my hands trembling. She wasn't looking for sympathy. She wasn't trying to stir up drama. She was trying to give me the full picture. The truth I hadn't even thought to look for. Because the woman on the plane, she wasn't the only betrayal. She was just the last one. My husband hadn't stumbled into an affair. He'd been choosing it, over and over again. Like an addiction. Like a lifestyle. Different cities. Different women. A trail of broken promises and sweet nothings. Me. I was the anchor. The constant. The mask he wore to look respectable. Have you ever realized someone didn't just betray you once, but built a life around doing it repeatedly? How do you recover from that? I want to hear your thoughts because the truth is I still don't know. I stared out the window of my hotel room, the Eiffel Tower in the distance. I should have been numb. But I wasn't. Because something inside me had already started to heal. Not because he didn't love me, but because I finally accepted he never knew how. And that had nothing to do with me. It took losing him to find myself. To learn that loyalty doesn't mean staying with someone who's mastered the art of deception. It means staying true to yourself, even when it breaks your heart. I messaged Eliza back. I thanked her. I told her she wasn't alone. And I told her I hoped, sincerely, that she never settled for crumbs again. Because we both deserve the whole damn cake. I left Paris that afternoon. Boarded a plane alone. No drama. No seat surprises. No curtain-drawn lies. Just peace. And when I got home I hugged my son tighter than ever. I looked into his eyes and promised him something. That from this day forward he would see what real love looks like. Honest. Safe. Unshakable. Even if it didn't come in the form of a perfect marriage. Because love isn't perfection. It's truth. And finally I was living mine. Would you have wanted to know what Eliza told me? Or would you have preferred to leave it buried? Comment your thoughts. Because sometimes, the final truth is the one that sets you free. Thank you for coming on this journey with me. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear they're not alone. And remember, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing peace over pain. Again and again. Also support us in bringing more intense and inspiring drama by clicking on the subscribe button. Thank you so much.